Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for 10 minutes to explore how we can support well-being within our teams. If this is your first time joining us, welcome to our learning community. This morning, we returned to the leadership support building block of well-being, and specifically the importance of noticing nonverbal communication. We have a lot to get through today, so I'm going to jump right in. What we're not going to talk about is how we read and interpret body language. And the reason for this is we want to avoid making judgments about the nonverbal communication we see and just stay in the place of curiosity. What we are going to focus on is why learning to notice body language or nonverbal communication is important and how we get better at noticing it in ourselves and in others with curiosity and without judgment. Nonverbal communication is important because it's potential information we can use as leaders to better understand other people and ourselves. In very oversimplified terms, much of our brain is nonverbal, and it may take a moment for information that is being generated in nonverbal areas of our brain to be put into words. Have you had a gut feeling about something? Our brains are asking us to pay attention in case we miss important information. Many of us have learned over time not to ignore these intuitions or gut instincts, either in service of our patients or of ourselves. This doesn't mean, though, that gut instincts are always right, but they are an important early warning system. Sometimes, whether we're aware of it or not, our brain flags something as risky or potentially a threat, and this may show up in our body language. The reverse is also true, that confidence can show up too. The benefits of noticing nonverbal communication connect both to our leadership effectiveness and our individual and team well-being. As human beings, we have this deep need to feel seen and heard by others. And when we're able to notice others' nonverbal messages with curiosity and without judgment, and ourselves, then others in our team may feel seen, and we increase the presence and quality of connection, communication, trust, interpersonal safety, empathy, and then compassion, both for others and for ourselves. The foundation for all of this is our ability to develop awareness of others and ourselves in action. Yes, it's important to notice other people's nonverbal communication, but it's very helpful to notice our own signals and how they influence those around us. Perhaps the most obvious place to start is by noticing posture. Social psychologist Amy Cuddy had a 2012 TED Talk, "Your Body Language May Shape Who You Are." This has been viewed more than 64 million times. And in it, she talks about the power of our body language to shape how we see ourselves and how other people see us, and our willingness to embrace challenges. Her 2015 book, Presence, expanded on that. And in that book, Cuddy distinguishes powerful poses from powerless poses. What I find most interesting about this is that whatever you think about these poses you're looking at, and whether you would want to see them in the workplace, there is one very clear difference. The power postures are open and expansive, and the powerless postures are closed or contracted. They're self-protected or guarded, which hints at the presence of uncertainty or fear. Now, notice I said hints at, because maybe person number 7's hands are cold, or person number 8's neck is sore. But what we do know, though, is that when we feel vulnerable, we instinctively guard our major organs in our chest and our abdomen. And that can signal, to our brain that we're in protective mode. The opposite is true. When we open up our chest intentionally, we send a message back to our brain that we're okay, we're safe. Now, people also notice how we move. Are we smooth, confident, jerky, anxious? But remember, these are just clues or signals. They're not facts. Closely related to posture and movement is how we occupy the space around us. Have you ever felt uncomfortable during a conversation because someone is just too close and invading your space? We can use physical space to communicate many different messages, including signals of welcome or openness, disinterest, disconnection, or even aggression or dominance. Here's a practical tip. If you need to have a constructive feedback conversation with somebody, make sure nothing's in your space. Consider not having a desk or barrier between you. During COVID, many of us discussed the impact of not being able to touch as we had before. We communicate a lot through touch. Think about the very different messages given by a firm or a weak handshake, a warm hug, a gentle caring or calming touch, or a controlling grip on an arm. Gestures are another form, and I'm using them now, of communication. And without thinking about it, we use them all the time. We can point or wave or beckon when we're talking or arguing. And sometimes our gestures unknowingly can cause discomfort. For example, when we point at somebody, they may feel put on the spot. Checking our watch or looking at our cell phones are other gestures that can really have people feel that we're disinterested, that we're bored, we don't care about them. And they often are read as the fact that we are just sort of separate and isolated and unconcerned. Facial expressions. Faces are extremely expressive and able to convey countless emotions without us saying a word. There are 7 facial expressions that are considered universal in that they transcend language and culture. And those 7, which are understood globally, are happiness, surprise, contempt, sadness, fear, disgust, and anger. That said, there are other facial expressions that are much harder to read and interpret, and they're better approached with curiosity. For many of us, eye contact is an important type of nonverbal communication. The way you look at someone can communicate many things, including interest, affection, hostility, or attraction. Eye contact is also important in listening, maintaining the flow of a conversation, and for gauging the other person's interest and response to what's being said. Just a word of caution, some people become uncomfortable with unbroken eye contact. So if you notice this, find a way to just gently look down briefly and give them a little space. Eye contact alone may not tell the whole story, and we notice patterns that seem unusual. For example, if you were talking to this young woman, which of these nonverbal messages would you be most curious about? I would probably be most curious about the second from the left, because her eyes and her smile don't match. She might look like she's smiling at us, but maybe she's uncomfortable, a little upset with us, maybe she's confused. This would be a place to lean into curiosity. And last but not least, our voice. It's not just about what we say, it's about how we say it. People notice our timing, our pace, how loud we speak, our tone and our inflection, and the sounds we make that convey our understanding, such as ah, aha. Think about how someone's tone of voice can indicate interest, curiosity, encouragement, affection, impatience, sarcasm, anger, confidence, or hesitancy. And silence, as we've discussed before, can also convey powerful messages about acceptance and our willingness to remain present. By now, you're probably thinking, Carolyn, this is way too much to pay attention to. It is a lot. But in fact, we are paying attention to these cues all the time. The most important lesson of all today is that we should not assume we know what the nonverbal signal means. Noticing is simply a gateway into greater insights about our colleagues and about ourselves. Keep an open mind and an open heart. And when you notice yourself communicating in a way that may not be helpful, please treat yourself kindly. As Maya Angelou says, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. And friends, we are all on this journey together. And that brings us to our tips for today. Manager tip number 30. Start by noticing the nonverbal behaviors that support healthy communication with your team. Look for the good things. And agenda tip 32, consider adopting a no cell phone norm for meetings. Please answer the 2 questions that at the link that Meg will put in the chat. And next week, Dr. Sophia will be back with us to discuss fairness and accountability. As always, we have resources for you at Healthy at Hopkins and the Office of Wellbeing. And now I look forward to your questions.